I don't know whether you find this, but in organizations, there's a whole bunch of managers out there who think their people are theory X. And they need to be motivated and they need to be cajoled and they need KPIs. And, if I wasn't here, boy, they wouldn't be able to do their job. Versus a theory Y person, or someone who believes about theory Y will manage and lead those people very differently. In fact, will probably lead them more than manage them. So again, it's just a way of thinking about that. And if you think about your own teams or the systems you're trying to influence, it'd be interesting to think what's the narrative around people? Is it more theory X that you hear people talk about, or is it more theory Y? And how might you be able to influence uh, people around, more towards the Y thinking? So I love this quote. We cannot act on systems, leadership, performance, or change coherently if we don't agree beforehand on the assumptions we hold about human nature and people. Is this resonating for people? Is it making sense? Yep. Great. So I know this is, somewhat theoretical, but unless we can kind of lift the bonnet on this and really go deeper on the very nature of organizations and the very nature of management and leadership, then how the heck are we going to crack the culture code? We can't. We're just going to make the same mistakes, right? So we are going to spend a little bit of time really trying to understand culture and organizations at a different level and potentially a deeper level. This is a really fun one that Kelly's going to take us through now
Bill?
to go deeper on this.
Awesome. Let's move the slide there. Okay, so inside every organization, there's a whole set of assumptions that they're quietly shaping how things get done. Assumptions that, often we don't stop and question. Most of them were passed down to us by maybe leaders who came before. And you can think of these assumptions and the habits and systems that they create as kind of like an operating system. So, just like on your computer, runs silently in the background. Sometimes we hit the tech glitches, but generally keeps everything working, or at least, it appears to. And I think operating systems, they're everywhere once you start looking. Simple example, an intersection, as you're seeing here, where two roads meet. Pretty simple, right? But there's a challenge. How do we let as many cars through as possible without them crashing into each other? And the solution that we've landed on in most places around the world is that signal controlled intersection, as you're seeing here, the good old traffic light. But I just want to pause for a second. If we look at this as an operating system, and we can start to ask, what are the assumptions behind it? Maybe pop into the chat if you can. What are some of the assumptions, or you can jump off mute? What are some of the assumptions that we can make about traffic lights as an operating system? Feel free to come off mute if it's easier.
The assumption that people will stop.
The assumption that people will
Traffic
stop.
lights. Yeah.
Yep. That people will obey. Yeah.
Yeah.
That we understand what each color means.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're assuming people understand the signals and that people will obey them. We're also assuming that people can't be trusted to manage the intersection on their own, that they need to be told what to do, that complex problems have to be managed with elaborate rules and technology, in the form of cables, light switches, control centers. And also that we need a plan for every possible scenario. The multicolored signals, the arrows, the ability to switch from the solid flashing to the flashing lights and so on. Melissa, that they will work and function well. Yeah, absolutely. And so the opposite of that is the roundabout. It's also an operating system, but it's built on completely different assumptions about people and the problem. So what are some of the assumptions that we might make about a roundabout? Pop it into the chat or feel free to jump off mute. People understand the order and the rules. Zoe, yeah, absolutely. People are capable of making good judgments. Yes. People have the capacity to drive safely and are confident in their driving skills. Awesome. People can be trusted, right? And they'll trust each other. Use their judgment, do the right thing. No one's standing there directing the traffic. Drivers in this scenario are expected to make smart choices in real time. And I think it also, it also assumes that complex problems can be managed with just simple rules. So instead of a stack of regulations and sensors, red lights, we've just got a couple of agreements that give way to cars that are already in the circle, go with the flow of the traffic. That's it. And then third, I think, is that assumption that social coordination is enough. So even though hundreds of unpredictable scenarios in this scenario can play out in a roundabout every day, people are going to figure it out together. So it's a really different way of thinking about an operating system. It's grounded in trust, adaptability, and shared responsibility. So curious, pop into the chat. Which one do you think is safer? Traffic lights or roundabout? You can just pop a 1 for traffic light, 2 for roundabout. Which one's safer? Yeah, okay.
Mixed bag again.
One mixed bag, yeah. What about which one has higher throughput? A 1 or a 2? Traffic lights or roundabouts? Mix again. Which one is cheaper to build and maintain? Lots of 2s.
Bit more agreement on that one.
Yeah. Which one works better when the power goes out? I think we can all guess that one. So the answer to all 4 is the roundabout. And so, we know that roundabouts reduce injury collisions by about 75% and fatal collisions by 90%. They result in an 89% reduction in delays. They're about $5,000 to $10,000 cheaper to maintain every year. And they work in power outages. But which one are we more comfortable with? Which one do we see more? The signal controlled intersection or the traffic lights? So I think sometimes we can confuse, popularity or what we've done before with quality and what maybe works better. So these 2 approaches, I think, are a really good metaphor for what's happening in organizations. The way that we're working and the way that we know best isn't serving us anymore, but it's really hard to trust the alternative. And our organizational operating system, the practices, the policies, the processes, procedures, all of those norms that shape our day-to-day, it's so prevalent that we almost take it for granted. But I think if we stop to, or if you've ever stopped to wonder why we need managers or budgets or performance reviews, that's that process of questioning the operating system or the legacy operating system. That's us questioning that without even knowing it. So at this point, I'd love you to pull out the culture canvas and just take a moment to consider the Aspire section. When it comes to your organization's culture, where do you want to go? Where do we want to go? What kind of culture do you want to be known for? What kind of stories do we want people to tell? Which attributes are going to enable our strategy? Just take a moment to reflect on that section, and if you'd like to, if you'd like to share maybe something that's come up for you throughout the session so far,